Story games. If you've been on Roblox, you've probably played one, and you know how great some of them can be. They started from Samson XVI, who made the Camping series, and at the time of the release were extremely popular. But were they good? In this video, I'll be covering each of them and rating them based on 5 categories. Replayability. Being able to play games more than once is pretty important, and although it's more difficult with story games, there are ways to make playthroughs different. Design. Maps are important. There should be enough for it to not feel empty, but also not so big that walking from landmark to landmark makes the game boring. Lore. The story part of story game. For a game to be a story game, it should be more than just there's an evil guy, because there are a few too many that are just that. Horror and atmosphere. Atmosphere is more important here, as if you're not too immersed in the environment, horror doesn't really work. Enjoyment. Subjective rating, but as long as there are interesting things to do, great. This one will also act as more of a collective rating. The first 4 are rated up to 5 and enjoyment up to 10. First up is camping. Now we're gonna get through this one pretty quickly, as honestly it's a very empty game. Camping places you in Specky Woods, which is a pretty empty setting that doesn't have much to offer. Night 1 comes and a spooky guy appears, so you've gotta run. Day 2 comes and not much happens other than talking to park rangers. Bears killing off deer has become a problem for you? It seems like it's more of a problem for the deer. Then we spend the night in the cave since one of the tents collapsed. Deer killer fetches our sandwiches, and after eating them, the narrator conveniently drops that one of them is poisoned. Don't worry guys, it's his bad for being unlucky. Then we get luck tested again with a picket path and hop back to 2011 because we're playing Flood Escape. Then we get to day 3 and oh boy, I wonder what we're gonna do today. Night comes and someone gets kidnapped. You don't actually have to save them, but I'm kinda the best. Since the entire campgrounds is level, we get to go to the convenient high place when darkness fills the forest. Turns out, bears kill a lot more than deer. They also kill rats. Thanks, Freddy. So, there's not much replayability in this game. You've got 2 different adventures in the cave and 2 technically different endings, where one of them is just that you die for being solo. 1 out of 5. The map is pretty bare, and I'm not a huge fan of how you can see literally everywhere during the day, but it's the first game, and daytime is honestly irrelevant in this game anyway, so 2 out of 5. Story is probably one thing this game does okay at. You've got a note hinting more at the story, but most of it has to be just jammed in at the end, so 3 out of 5. The jump scares in this game are okay, if a bit lame, because most of them are just a JPEG plastered on your screen, but the overall atmosphere during the night does have you a little on edge. 2.5. I'm honestly a bit hesitant to rate this game's enjoyment. Most of it is dependent on the group you're playing with, as the actual gameplay of the game takes up about 1/8 of the time you're playing, but I guess at least it doesn't mandate a walking sim. 4 out of 10. Camping's overall score is a 12.5 out of 30. This is probably a good time to say I'm not trying to hate on Samson or the Camping series. I think story games as a whole are pretty flawed as a genre. It's really difficult to get pacing done, so the game feels to not rush or drag, and as a result, most of these games suffer. I still enjoy the Camping series and am glad it exists. I just think it's worth acknowledging that the games themselves were likely not as good as we thought because of what they rely on so much. With that being said, let's look at Hotel. Wow, this music is really energetic. I hope I don't have to listen to it for too long. I end up in room 301 with this girl who just really likes the bathroom before receiving an emergency announcement to come to the lobby. After getting there and waiting, a spooky monster appears, so we go back to my room, I guess, since there's a blizzard, and then there's this family who apparently won't take any of us seriously when we say it's not safe, but whatever. So we go to the lobby to call for help and end up here? It's okay, the obby is pretty easy, so I'm sure it won't be... Okay, everyone's dead. Same tracks for this dead body that we stumble on, so let's just go call for help. They say help is on the way and don't give any instructions, so obviously the only thing we can do is go to the roof. Unsurprisingly, the elevator jams again and we have to escape. And then the door is locked, so we have to enter the vents and escape. And then there's a boss fight? After doing essentially nothing, you have to run to a place to determine your ending. I went to the lobby and escaped the hotel. I'm sure you can tell that I'm not a huge fan of this game. Every time you get in the elevator, you get to listen to this theme that doesn't fit in at all, and the secret demon room underneath the hotel is a little stupid in my opinion. The boss fight isn't fun, and anytime you shove against a wall, you can just see outside the entire map. For replayability, there are 3 endings total, and there's enough gameplay each time that you might have fun on a replay, but it's never unique. 2 out of 5. The map is pretty cool, but the immersion is instantly removed anytime you hug a wall. 2.5 out of 5 needs thicker walls. The lore is pretty sparse in this one, and the plot is only cohesive if you understand all the lore, but I guess it helps the other games. 1.5. I was scared approximately 0 times in this, but the atmosphere upon discovering the dead body is done pretty well, if only weren't followed by epic elevator music. 0.5. For enjoyment, I like hobbies. The boss fight was really boring though, so I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Hotel gets a 10.5 out of 30. Oh, we're going down. Camping 2 starts off with Park Ranger Daniel giving a tour of the new campgrounds, including the tents, cabins, and bathroom. The bathroom seems a little off though. After that, it's time for your first night, where you either spend the night in the tents or the cabin. This game starts off, well, the jump scare in the bathroom is unexpected, but accomplishes its goal very well. The idea of being separated in the night between groups is also interesting, as you don't know what's happening between them. The tent group gets attacked and makes their way to the cabin, and then we wait until morning. Daniel starts off the day taking the group on a hiking trip, which is just an hobby, but I think this kind of thing is honestly needed in these games. Downtime during the day is a huge weakness in most of these games and is typically just seen as filler between the nights where all the action actually happens. Though I'm not a huge fan of the reward literally doing nothing while the challenge poses a risk to you. Night comes again and it starts raining, so we have to collect wood to start a new fire, but you have to be careful as you can see the killer is also in the woods. After getting all the wood, we restart the fire and there's bombs everywhere. These are a little unfair to avoid, but it's mostly fine. Then someone finds a gun in the blue tent and they have the choice to shoot Daniel, as he hasn't been around during any of the previous activities when danger comes around, making him a prime suspect. The guy who made the choice in our group instantly shot Daniel, so hopefully that was the right move. We kinda just chill for the rest of the day before spending the night at the cabin. I wonder why. The storm proves too much for the cabin, so we seek shelter in the hole. We go through a maze, snakes, and another flood escape before we reach the conclusion. We ask the guy not to kill us, and it doesn't go so well. This game kinda stirs in the same replayability issues as Hotel and Camping, 1 out of 5. The map, in my opinion, looks a lot more complete than the other two. I think it's mainly to do with not being able to see the whole map from one spot like in Camping, and not being able to see the exterior of the entire map so easily in Hotel. 3.5. The lore drops aren't heavy in this one, but it's the first time we're seeing Zach Nolan, and the overall cohesiveness of the plot genuinely makes sense. 4 out of 5. Camping 2 honestly excels in its atmosphere. You get jump scared in the bathroom and then you're separated from your group. Then in the second night you can see him hiding away in the forest. I'm gonna give Camping 2 a 4.5 out of 5. I had fun in this one. There's almost always an activity that you're up to and there's a perfect amount of downtime in game. 8 out of 10. Camping 2 comes out with a 21 out of 30. Okay, so we're about to go into Camping 2. I've found that this game would work pretty well for a speedrun, and you might be wondering, oh, why is that? It's just like a little, like it's a story game. The plot should be completely set out, right? Well, fortunately, we've got a little bit more to do than that. You can immediately leave that starting area. You can't go anywhere else because you can't go anywhere else. You can't take the bridge across because there's an invisible wall, and then there's a few more. So we're gonna be carrying over this other wall before we can get onto the place where the actual cave is. Notice how we're at 40 seconds, which is, you know, about a 10th, no, a 20th of this full game. Oh, that's a time loss. Oh boy. Here, side, and oh, just missed the one. There's Zach Nolan, and that's camping too. For some reason, I think a lot of people really don't like Mansion, and my initial thoughts didn't align with that, but let's go through it. We're invited to a dinner party and take a long drive to get there and sit down while this guy goes on a rant about how there's other people who didn't show up to his party, and then he gets a little angry. So he decides to take it out on us. Or, damn, I guess me specifically, what the hell? We go hide and find this scary workshop room with an animatronic and a dead girl who tells us to GTFO, which stands for Get to Falling Off. Then there's a spooky scary fire? Spikes? Oh no, fire and spikes! We get out, and then on cue a bunch of spiders come out to attack us, and then we run into a different room with shifting bookcases, but we have to avoid Zach. The shifting around causes us to have to backtrack, and then... Dude. So we backtrack again, and then GTFO, which obviously stands for Go to Farm Oranges. Okay. That's Mansion, a much shorter installment, but actually pretty packed. This game is unfortunately the worst when it comes to playing it more than once. The gameplay loop is entirely set, but like, maybe you can drive the first time and then not drive another time? 0.5. This map is actually fairly expansive and probably has the best look in all of these games, but it falls into the same hole as Hotel, being able to see exteriors through thin walls. 3.5. This game is honestly probably the most interesting and revealing of the camping lore, as you find out Zach's motivation and his plans with his daughter. The story itself is rather weak, as his motivation against the players themselves shouldn't really exist. Like, just invite the family, dude. And the fact that he already has this dungeon despite not being crazy before his daughter's death, I'd still give it a 3.5. There's not many scary moments, but the atmosphere of fear throughout the story is still there. 2.5. Pretty fun too, not much filler, but some of the aspects are a little boring, so we'll give it a 6 out of 10. 16 out of 30, not bad. Okay, so I'm in the middle of recording this video, but I found myself on the camping wiki page, and like all this stuff is like, all the story stuff is good, and then you get to the like bio. So first of all, he's late 30s, which I don't know how we know that. Possibly an office worker. Friends, the camping group. This isn't true. I don't think they ever interact. I don't think he's necessarily friends with the police officers. The family of 5, I would hope so. And the hotel group, which he really doesn't associate with our group at all. And then the enemies, of course, you have Zach Nolan and the hotel monster. And of course he's dead. He gets him a lights, and it's his family being safe, the police officers, and spending times with his family. And that's really wholesome. And then he dislikes being murdered by Zach Nolan. And he doesn't like jokes, as we know from Hotel. And also doesn't like that his car crashed into Emma Logan and not having kids. For the last game in the camping series, we have Camping 3. We arrive at Wicca Peak and see the lodge, mine, and lake before settling in for the night. We hear some crying, so we decide to check it out. Then there's Park Ranger Steve, who's kind of just chilling, and he's dead. The next day, someone catches a cold, so we have to grab firewood to start a fire and cure them. Now, for some genius reason, we decide to stay in the mines because the lodge isn't safe. The only place we haven't seen the mouse enter isn't safe. The mines end up caving in due to plot, and for some reason every single person gets the point of starvation in about 5 minutes, but I guess we're still upholding democracy. Then we run through the mines because, wow, the mines weren't safe. Who could have guessed? We meet up with Daniel and head back to the lodge before getting attacked by the mouse and whatever the enemy of Hotel was. After a boss fight that is leagues better than anything else in the series, we fail and are about to be pushed off the cliff when what happens? The ghosts of the murdered family start pushing against Zack and his daughter when Nightmare appears and says, "Stop it!" Ghost says, "Sorry for hitting your daughter with my car." Like, verbatim. And Zack says, "It's okay." And then we almost dies, but we don't. And Zack dies. Same trend with replayability here, 0.5. The map is the biggest it's been, but it's still a bunch of trees that don't really match the blocky aesthetic of Roblox and that the rest of the map has. And the interior of the lodge is much smaller than I expected. There's an entire room that you can see from the outside that isn't accessible. 3 out of 5. I'm a little confused on why it seems like Zack is targeting specifically Park Ranger Daniel, but in terms of this just being a slasher, then I'm fine with it. The summing up from the story all here is pretty good too, 3.5. The mouse mascot is off-putting but not really effective in a horror sense. Neither is Limbo, and besides the nights in the cabin, the atmosphere is honestly a bit weak. Especially in the cave when it should be focused more on the being snowed in and, maybe trapped. You get hit with, "I'm hungry." 2 out of 5. For enjoyment, there's not much that isn't just a walking sim besides the boss fight. Everything else is way too easy. 4 out of 10. Totaling that, Camping 3 gets a 13 out of 30. So, that's the Camping series. It's been fun, but... oh. I guess there's one more. Moe's Academy is the actual last game we'll be covering. It's unaffiliated with the Camping series, but still made by Samson, so I figured it should be included. We start by going to school and get some free time to rummage in lockers before going to class. From what I can tell, I think this game was meant to be more of an infinite wave-based games where you would stock up during the day to be able to make it through the night, but it was much shorter than that in this. After going to our classes, we try leaving, but we have detention. We escape by collecting 3 keys to the door before getting sent right back on day 2, where we kinda just accept that this is our life now. The football team comes in during lunchtime and decide to fight us. They failed. Then comes detention, where we kinda just run away from evil guy. Then day 3 comes and ow! Nothing happens before detention, where we just walk out and boss fight Mo. After that, we leave and that's it. You'd think this game would have a bit more replayability, but it's honestly pretty boring and there's not going to be any difference between runs. 1 out of 5. The school looks pretty bland, but some of the graphics the game shows you are pretty cool. 2.5. There's about 0 story to this besides you have detention and need to get away from spooky rabbit guy. 0.5. I don't think this game was really meant to be horror, or at least supposed to be mascot horror. And the nights do generally feel a bit more immersive than the days, so 3. Enjoyment is a little hard to rank here. I think some of the gameplay here might probably be better than anything in the Camping series, but this is also the longest game, and the days really don't feel necessary to the gameplay loop, even if it's a cool idea to stock up. 4 out of 10. Moe's gets an 11. There's all of Samson's games ranked, except for Armageddon because it's unrated. We ended up having Camping 2 on top due to it just overall having more substance than every other game, but honestly all of the Camping series were really fun to revisit and I'm glad they exist. The series may not be as objectively good as I remember, but they're all still fun to play, and if I'm being honest, the cohesive storyline through all these games is actually really nice to see, as I'm pretty sure no other story game series does this. If you've enjoyed my rambling about story games and want to see more, please like and comment. I know there are other groups out there with more games, and I definitely could see myself making another one of these. Thanks for watching. See ya.